my name is Ovilasari and this is my second video of Factual Speech course. Are you curious what Mr. Handy has to send to us? Without any further ado, let's check this out. Last week, Mr. Handy asked us to tell about our panic moment story. But now, with some improvements, Mr. Handy asked us to tell about the most embarrassing moment in our life. Well, to be frankly honest, for me personally, it's really embarrassing when you have to tell this kind of story, because when you're memorizing the moment, suddenly you look at something like a second-hand embarrassment to the moment that happened to you in the past. However, I must tell you the story, so let's the story begin. The story began when I'm in the final year of my high school. At that time, as a senior student who wanted to continue the study to a university, I should work harder to prepare a lot of exams such as school exam, national exam, and of course, the legendary one, a university entrance exam, or in Indonesia we call it SBMPTN. In order to prepare my study to be more structured and more scheduled, I, with my two friends, registered ourselves in a course that has an elephant as its icon. The story began when both of my friends couldn't attend the class course, so I should force myself to go there alone. At first, I thought that I could skip the class because I didn't want to be there alone. The students in that course from my school were only 3 of us, so yeah, it's kind of intimidating when you are alone surrounded by strangers, right? Well, actually, we all already knew each other quite well, but since I'm a close person, it feels peculiar when your friends were not around. My thought about skipping the class was stopped when I looked at my schedule that day. I had a math class, and that was my first class on math in that course. Thus, I was really lacking on math, so yeah, I didn't want to pass that important class. I didn't realize that the clock was already pointed at 3:40 p.m. while my class will be starting at 4 p.m. The location of that course from my house is quite far. It takes around 30 minutes. So yeah, rushing with time, I went there by my motorcycle. After tapped my card to a presence machine, I hurriedly went to the class. I knocked the door and there were a lot of people there. They have started the lesson. After the teacher apologized my lateness, I grabbed the chair and sat down there. When I grabbed the chair, I felt like all of those eyes were following my movement. It seemed like they have some question to ask me, but they remained silent. I wanted to ask them, what are you guys looking at? Why you guys keep staring at me like that? But the teacher wanted us to be focused on the whiteboard. During the lesson process, everything seemed normal, everything seemed like as usual, but when the teacher handed me a piece of paper as a proof of our attendance in the classroom, I couldn't find my name listed on that paper. I asked the teacher why, but she was in confusion too, so she excused herself for a moment, went out from the class and asked the customer service there. When the teacher went out from the class, suddenly a boy who sat in front of me asked me, "So, you are new here?" And I replied, "Yeah, but I'm not that quite new. It's supposed to be my second week here." And then he shook his head dramatically. You saw why I never met you before this class?" I shook my shoulders and looked around the class. I rubbed my eyes, didn't believe that when I realized that why all those faces there would seem unfamiliar to me and why I couldn't find any of my friends there. My hands were starting trembling and sweating. I asked that boy again, "This is a math class, right?" He nodded his head and asked me to check my schedule. I grabbed my phone in my bag and checked that schedule again. And yeah, math was my schedule that day. I have a math class, okay? And then he asked me again to check the class code. "It's Q20. And suddenly he burst with laugh. "Jeez, you entered the wrong class." I blinked my eyes 2 times when I looked at the door that it's Q21, not Q 20. At that time, I didn't know what to do. I wish that code will give me a power to disappear. So, wrong class, huh? I didn't answer that silly question, placed my head on the table, cursing myself for being so clumsy. I even didn't have an audacity to keep up my head after knowing the reality that I entered the wrong class. Hiding face with my hand, suddenly someone tapped my shoulder. I looked at the face and that was the teacher. Before she said something, I politely interrupted her. Sorry miss, but I think I entered the wrong class. And she exclaimed, oh, you already know that? I nodded my head lazily and stood up. I will go to my class then. And she went, no worries, you can stay here. I'll inform Mr. Baby if you are attending my class. For your information, Mr. Baby is my real math teacher. At that time, I wanted to protest because seriously guys, I couldn't handle that embarrassing moment anymore. I'd like to drowning myself in the deep ocean. I let someone to kidnap me from that class so I could bury my face on my bed without anyone noticing. But luckily, 5 minutes after that, the bell was ringing as a sign that the learning process is finished, and that means that my embarrassing moment should be over. I waited till the class was empty so that I could escape myself peacefully. When I took my first step past the door, the annoying boy came again, approached me and teased me. Better you look over your phone before you sit in someone's class. I didn't want to answer that tease. I just rolled my eyes and went to the parking lot. But because of that moment, every time I passed that boy, I should literally cover my whole face with the books because I didn't want him to keep remembering that silly moment. That's all this video is about. Thank you so much for watching and goodbye.
All you ever say is come and see me for once. Come and see me for once.